Hello YouTube viewers, this is CraneProductions27 here, and now I'm going to do my review on Thomas and Friends, The Adventure Begins. Now, I've already seen the US version. I saw it a few months ago, and now I've seen the UK version, and I'm ready to tell you what I think of it. Now, I'm sure most of you have already seen the episode, but if you haven't seen it and you don't want to listen to this review, I suggest you turn away now. Last chance. Okay, but don't say I didn't warn you. Well, what can I say? It was brilliant. The Adventure Begins was one of the best specials I'd ever seen, and a very exciting and very special way to make a contribution to the 70th anniversary of Thomas the Tank Engine. Basically, it tells some of the stories, the first ever stories from the 3 railway engines and Thomas the Tank Engine books. Let's just go through the stories. Thomas arrives on Sodor and he's painted a different colour. He comes from Brighton, which is why he has LBSC on the side of him and a number 70 on his tanks. I could have gotten the letters wrong, but you know what letters I'm talking about. He comes to Sodor and he's learning his way around the yards, and he's slowly getting to know the other engines, and then he gets painted blue and has the number 1 painted on his side. And then he starts getting teased at by the other engines. He gets teased by Gordon. He then gets teased by James after Thomas makes a little mishap with the coaches. And then Thomas makes some new friends in the yard, Annie and Clarabelle. And we even get to see for the first time in ages the breakdown cranes, who now have names: Jerome and Judy. These 2 characters are on standby in case of an emergency, like with Rocky at the rescue centre, but only these 2 are smaller, and this is before Rocky arrives. Then Thomas has to come to the rescue when James ends up coming off the rails after the troublesome trucks have caused him so much trouble. He collects Jerome and Judy. James gets rescued. Thomas is then rewarded with his very own branch line, and he gets to be the number 1 engine of the railway, as he has rightfully earned it after his effort in bravery and courage and unselfishness. And we also got to meet Glenn, the coffee pot engine, right at the very end. Let's go through what I thought of the story. It was amazing. It told a very good story, and I liked the way the Reverend Audrey stories were explained and said in different parts. They even mixed parts of the breakdown crane story, Thomas and the breakdown train, in 2 separate pieces. They mixed the first part in where Thomas meets the cranes after the Thomas and Gordon bit that we see. And the other thing I liked best is the way they helped to make each scene from the Railway Series book episodes follow on from each other. And I thought that was very impressive. And what I liked best about this whole story was that we got to see how Thomas arrives on Sodor, and we see how he got to earn his place on the Fats Controllers Railway. The characters. Edward was his usual self, his old wise self and helpful self, and that's what I like about him. Henry, he was good, but he was a bit of a warrior, and to be honest, I'm not really sure if he was a warrior in the Railway Series books, not until he started having coal problems. Gordon, I didn't like the way he was always so boastful. He was always acting like he was the big man, like he was bigger, better, stronger and faster, everything than everyone else. And he kind of acts like pompous and disrespectful at times. James. Now what can I say about James? Painted black with red stripes. That is how he used to look in the Railway Series books. And I was amazed how Andrew Brenner decided to put that into the story. As for Thomas, well, what can I say? He was just lovable. You just have to love the character and you have to feel sorry for him every time he made a little mess and got a little couple of bits wrong. The train, the trucks, and even bumping his way around the yards. But at least he had Edward around to help him. And I liked how Annie and Clarabelle, the coaches, were always by Thomas's side and giving him advice, like telling him not to touch the breakdown train. Now then, the characters. The new ones, I mean. Jerome and Judy. They were great. They were a great pair of cranes, and I liked how they just snapped into action. That snappy her was me clicking my fingers. So it was. They would if something goes wrong, then they would just wake up just like that. That is very clever. They would say emergency, and I'll tell you this. When I first heard about Jerome and Judy, when they said Jerome, Judy, emergency, I'm sure some of you have thought about this already. You could have gone Judy, Richard, emergency, or Robson, Jerome, emergency. You see, Richard and Judy and Robson and Jerome. That is got to be very funny because I thought that. I was thinking those two when I first heard about Jerome and Judy. Those two are a great pair of cranes, and I think they've got some great personality on them. And I hope we get to see them again on our TV screens very soon. Because they bring something to the Railway series, and they brought something to the TV series as well. And I think that if Rocky's going to be working with the Sodor Search and Rescue Centre, then maybe Jerome and Judy could help as well. But maybe not at the rescue centre, so they could be helpful around the yards. So if Rocky is unable to get to a rescue, then maybe Jerome and Judy could go. Glenn. Now sadly we didn't get to see much of Glenn, but I thought he was a good character. He was painted a nice red, and he looks a very interesting design. And I'm sure I read somewhere that the Fat Controller was the person who built him. Or I could be mistaking somebody else for that. So, and the other thing I liked about Glenn is that he was cheery and he had a smile on his face, and he had some very good advice and strong words for Thomas. And I liked how he's giggled at the end when Thomas called him Mr. Coffee Pot, and that was funny. So that's what I think of the new characters, and I liked them. I'll just go over the nitpicks now. Now all of you have probably said this. Henry was already in the wrong shape. He has his new boiler, but he was supposed to have his old boiler. But I think I probably know why they've had why they didn't put his old boiler in. Because I think something must have happened to his old boiler back then, and it's obviously either gone missing, or it's in storage somewhere and they can't find it, or accidentally must have been used for something else, or accidentally thrown away. I don't know, but that's my opinion. That's what I think. But if they could find Henry's old model, then that would be great. Glenn's voice sounds a little bit like, well, Scar Lowy. The Keith Wickham, he does wonderful voices. I just can't help but think he's starting to run out of voices to do. I'm sure he hasn't, but I know he'll still keep coming up with these great voices he provides. The same as Matt Wilkinson and Tim Whitnell. I must just say, John Hassler provides a brilliant voice for Thomas the Tank Engine, and I think he'll do a great job of continuing the role of Thomas from Ben Small. Because Ben Small, he did a beautiful job voicing Thomas, and Keith Wickham does a wonderful job of voicing Edward Henry Gordon James and the Fat Controller as well. And he got to voice Gordon's driver and the signalman. I like the signalman part. Really? Well, where are your coaches then? Teresa Gallagher. I loved her voice of Judy. And I love her voices of Annie and Clarabelle as well. I hope we get to hear her Judy voice again, because it would be so amazing. Tim Whitnell. He provides a wonderful voice of Jerome. His voice reminds me of one of his characters in, what's it called? Tree Food Tom. I can't remember which character, but it sounds like one of them. But I'll see if I can try and think of the name of... Well, whatever. The name's not important, but you probably... If you've watched Tree Food Tom, and you'll probably know what I mean. So, after the adventure begins, I do hope they make another 45 minute special, because a second one would be amazing. So I give The Adventure Begins a 9.5 out of 10. Why 9.5? Well, because of the other little bits. Henry's boiler, Glenn's voice as well. Those are the only two little problems I can find. But whatever, it was still fantastic, and I liked all of it. Oh no, wait! There were 7 spaces in Tinmouth's shed when there was only meant to be 6. Now I can't work out why they've left it like that, but I'm not going to say the same thing as everyone else has been saying again and again and again, because that would mean we're repeating ourselves. Well, I hope you liked my review, and I shall be watching The Adventure Begins again. So, see you later. CraneProductions27 signing off. Bye bye.